Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to the Briones Pickleball Podcast. We are on episode 008, and today we have a very, very special conversation with a very special person. If you obviously are following anything in the news, paddles, a lot of things are happening in the paddle world. Illegal paddles, legal paddles. This is the podcast that you're going to learn a lot from a person that has dealt with thousands of paddles. And I'm going to introduce him, Brett Warner.
Thank you, guys.
Where's the applause? Where's the applause? Come on. There it is. There it is. Brett Warner, everybody. Brett Warner's in the house.
Okay. So, in this episode, we're going to talk a lot about the paddle industry. We're going to give you really precise details on just the paddle controversies and why they exist. And we're going to learn a lot today. So buckle up, stay tuned. Brett Warner, you started a company how many years ago?
A year ago.
PaddleFix.
That's it.
And the reason why you're here today is you have a lot of information for us. And for those people out there that are listening and looking at all these tweets by pros and obviously the PPA, there's a lot of stuff going on right now with paddle controversies. But tell us a little bit about what you've been doing with PaddleFix over the past year and why you think, why I know that you're qualified to talk about paddles.
Well, first off, congrats on the podcast, guys.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate making the first 10 episodes.
That's right.
A little controversy, but no, I'm not here for fireworks tonight. I'm here to, give, a different perspective than what I've heard being, talked about on social media. I have what I think is a unique perspective because of, my business partner, Tracy Wallstad, who I think is uniquely situated to talk about, paddles. We started the first pickleball paddle repair company about a year ago.
Yeah. Over
the last 2.5 years, Tracy has repaired over 4,000 paddles across all brands. I think, in my opinion, he is just an engineer at heart. He knows what quality control is. He knows what assembly looks like. He knows what innovation is when he sees it. He knows what marketing claims are as well. But he's he's a good dude. So I think as we get into this, I've brought some videos and pictures from the workshop, and I would love to kind of share that with your audience because I think explaining what's going on and why it's happening is just as important as everyone's feelings about the advantages or disadvantages or however you want to frame it.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their opinions, right? I mean, let's get down to the facts. That's what I would love to hear.
All right.
Okay,
cool. Real quick about PaddleFix though. So paddles break, right, over time, or they have, let's say, defects or whatever, right? So what do you guys actually do? So they send it into you and then you guys just basically fix it for them, or how does it work? How does the process work?
Right. So we started the company a year ago. Like I said, I'm a player. I go through paddles relatively quickly. I went through the same experience most players do, where you have edge guards that come loose. Yeah. I don't play a lot of doubles, but occasional paddle tap after a match. But
single specialist, huh?
Yeah. Hard to get people to play with you at noon in Arizona.
Yeah.
Especially during the summer, and I know you like to play at noon in the summer.
I can convince one person at a time to come out and play.
Yeah.
I can't get 3 people to join me for doubles.
That's fair.
But yeah, so I went through the same experience, right? You go through paddles, they play great when they're new.
Right.
A few days, a few weeks go by, that paddle seems to play a little different, right? Some things, as far as the surface roughness, doesn't feel the same. The catch isn't the same. Accuracy, consistency, power, the sound. Sometimes the handle feels like it's not as secure as it was. Sometimes there's actual player, player damage, and
racket abuse.
Racket, yeah, that's right.
Paddle abuse.
Yeah.
There it is.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's you hear that a lot. But no, I don't throw paddles, but I have, I have sent them back in for warranty. But again, I love the game. I want to see the game grow. I want to see players in Arizona do very well. I want to see infrastructure built into this game. And part of that was, in my off time from work, finding folks that I think are adding value. And I came across Tracy Wallstad, who at the time had a business card, referred to himself as the Mad Paddler, because that's what he was. He would just be in a workshop taking paddles that, might otherwise be in a trash can and bringing them back to better than new.
So
right?
he did that. He was doing that already then.
Yeah, he was his background, Air Force mechanic. He'd fix all the cool fighter jets, the Warthogs. He worked for the DoD in advanced composites and quality control. All of the materials that are used in aerospace are also used in pickleball paddles, right?
So he's a little overqualified then.
Yeah.
He can put this back together.
He basically could do this with his eyes closed, and this is like basically reading the ABCs for him, is what you're saying.
Right.
I wish I was that smart.
Yeah. So this isn't even a plug for PaddleFix, but if you want to check it out, it's paddlefix.com. You'll see break fix services, right? So edge guards, when they come loose,
Yep.
This is a layered product. You want to keep the edge guard secure, so we can install a new edge guard. We take the old one off, put a new one on.
Yeah.
If there's a surface crack, normally at the strike point, which would be the top corners, we can repair that as well. And then a handle,
like an actual crack, you can repair it.
and then a handle break,
Wow.
right?
Handle breaks. We've seen those.
Yeah.
It's one where if you don't want your paddle back, you might see an orange bag at a tournament, which would be PaddleFix donations. The idea there is that tournament directors are starting to pick up on what we're doing, and they are collecting paddles that players no longer play with, or that they no longer play with because they are, broken to whatever degree.
Yeah.
And
Right.
we will refurbish them and donate them to a Boys and Girls program to just put paddles in players' hands and kids' hands, because it's something that we, in the seat that we're in, we're able to do.
That's cool, man.
And I didn't even know that. But working at Legacy, I find so many broken paddles or just paddles that are left there.
Dude,
So now that I know that,
orange
I will be texting you probably almost every other day.
I'll appreciate that.
Yeah.
So again, I do 1% of the work, right? This is not my job. But I think it's something that Tracy and I call the Jerry Maguire rule, where it's hard to be the athlete and the agent. So I view myself as, Tracy's agent. He does the stuff in the workshop.
Yeah.
I get to meet a lot of people and players and companies that have problems they want to solve. And we've kind of developed the initial concept, which is let's provide a service that benefits the sport.
Yeah.
And, really when people kind of find out what the company is, it becomes more interesting, which is, this is the best market research on the paddle industry in the world, right? What are we going to do with it? And it's gone a couple different directions over the last year. And I think it's on a track now to go somewhere that's a little bit unexpected for a lot of folks, probably disappointing for a lot of folks, but probably very exciting for Tracy. So, we'll get into that later, but I want to answer your questions today.
Yeah. So we'll get into that later. But let's just, this is, I guess, my initial question, because I haven't sent the paddle in to you guys. I know you guys have service. You said over 4,000 paddles, every single name brand out there, right? And we can get into those brands. But what are like the top three things like that you guys fix, the most common ones?
Most common is definitely a loose edge guard.
Yeah.
So just an edge guard coming loose. Right. And what would be some other ones?
A lot of times when you take off the edge guard, the reason that edge guard is coming loose is because of a design flaw or an issue during production on a mass-produced product that created either separation from the edge guard to the paddle face. So as you take apart the edge guard, a lot of times we'll be fixing surface cracks as well.
Okay, so
we do fix the handle break. You see, and again, Team Selkirk all the way around, but Tyson McGuffin, he's got the Bo Jackson. He breaks that paddle over his knee from time to time.
Did he send his in to you guys or
no? He gives them to fans that bring them home, and he's just a good dude. He does that's the right thing to do, is to have the fans have something to bring home. But we have taken paddles out of the trash can just to test Tracy to see what he can do. And I gave him just a paddle, just the paddle face, the handle. I didn't even know where the handle was.
Dude, I just thought of an idea. I don't know how it came to me. You guys should do one where you take different parts of different brands and put it together.
That'd be a
Like-
fancy little like piece of art.
Yeah,
you
like
know.
a handle from
Guys are,
Selkirk or
yeah,
a hedge guard from...
your instinct is right on. It's best of breed. I'll tell you, we can tell you the edge guards that are plasticky that dry out, crack. We can tell you the cores that are soft that stick to the paddle face.
Right.
There's a lot that goes into these, but I think your instinct is where Trace and I are landing. If only we had you a year ago, you could save us a lot of time.
Yeah.
That honestly, I really don't know a ton about pickleball paddles. I know what I like. I know what I don't like. And as far as what I know I like, it's the face of the paddle, and I know what size of the paddle I like, and I know how big and small I like my grip, and that's about what I know. So as far as all of these paddle companies go, I mean, what are some of the paddle face materials that we're all so used to using but maybe don't know the names of?
Oh, so that's a good question, right? So typically you've got three options.
Okay.
Right? You have a fiberglass, which would be
And we're talking about the face.
the face.
right?
The
Okay.
face material. So fiberglass is going to be completely smooth when you touch it,
Okay.
and then they put an applied grit on it either during production or applied grit after production.
And this is for
So think of the original
Yeah.
Franklin Ben Johns.
Right.
Right? Coming out of the packaging, felt really rough,
Right.
but after players would play with it a few days, weeks, months, it would, it's not the same paddle as what they bought.
Now,
Right, so that's an applied.
yeah.
So that's
Okay.
fiberglass. Then you get into carbon fiber, which is like gearbox, right? It's very hard. It's it's a straw material, but I don't know. This is an option where you can do a powder coating or an applied grit over it.
Right.
And the reason I bring that up is because that's kind of like the epic. You can get into where a lot of the paddles that people love playing with today and had the controversy for Paddlegate 1.0, but it's the raw carbon fiber.
Yeah.
And it's
Right.
a linear weave where you see different companies promoting different brands of raw carbon fiber. I think there's a Torre 700, but it's basically the weave of that carbon fiber is thick enough where it will pass a steroid test within USA pickleball standards, meaning if you were to go thicker, the surface roughness between the peak and the valley would be too much. It would not pass.
Interesting.
Right. So when you're talking about the surfaces, the raw carbon fiber, which is where most of the players are playing today, I like, that's what I'm playing with right now. But those are the paddle face materials.
Did you say this was your paddle?
It is.
Wow.
banged it up pretty much good, huh?
You said you're
It's my practice paddle.
I see.
I keep my fresh paddles for
Yeah.
tournaments.
Yeah. Okay, so you said real quick, just to backtrack, we got fiberglass. You said carbon fiber, and what was are those?
And
the
then
top
a
two?
raw carbon.
raw carbon,
right,
fiber, which would be like the CRBN or like a lot of the
Electrum and
Electrum, Yola. Okay,
Yeah. And then the halo as well.
the Halo. Absolutely.
Right.
so those are what would we call that, outside layer or
Surface.
surface? Okay, so now let's talk about the core. So what are the, I guess, top core materials then, or is it all honeycomb?
It's almost all honeycomb. I think in the past it was had everything from Nomex to I don't want to say something that's wrong, but
Yeah.
almost all the paddles are polypropylene honeycomb.
Okay.
And we'll show some pictures here in a minute, but the core material is almost uniformly across all paddles polypropylene.
So what makes honeycomb or polypropylene? Is that what you say? What makes, like, why? I mean, there's a million other materials out there, right?
Sure. It's where the industry has landed. I think that, when you think of the industry, how many paddle companies do you think are out there?
Well, I think
A lot more than we know, but also at the same time, like, we know the top brands that are used in pickleball.
All right. Well, how many factories do you think are out there?
Probably not that many. I don't know.
well, let's start with paddle companies, and I think I kind of cheated because you kind of I think you told me it's like over 500, right?
I think there's over 500 approved paddle brands
Wow.
Yeah,
right now.
and brands, not
Brands.
paddles, brands.
Right.
Lifestyle brands. They are not manufacturing paddles. They are ordering paddles. They are, to the extent they are making a unique mold, unique shape. Maybe, but they also would, just as easily order off the existing menu of shapes, sizes. They could do their own testing, but a lot of these brands are people that are excited about pickleball, that have some goals to grow the game locally, brother, sister teams, husband, wife teams, business partners that, wanted to just start a company, but they're all, most of these companies, probably over 90% are what I would call lifestyle brands. They don't have an engineer going through all this stuff. They're pickleball players, and they want to have their brand on their paddle and sell it locally. And I'll tell you, the factories that they're ordering from allow them to compete with the more established companies. It's a very low barrier to entry.
Yeah, and some of these in the same factory, right? These lifestyle brands are made in the same. These paddles are made in the same factory as some of the big brands we know. Again,
we take paddles apart for the job that we do, the service we provide. So very quickly we can tell you if there's 4 staples to attach a butt cap, and if there's a certain color or foam underneath the edge guard, it's we can pretty quickly tell you where it's coming from.
That's cool. Did you guys know that there's actually a Nike pickleball paddle?
Really?
Yep. I saw it when I went to a Nike store, and they put a paddle up, and I was like, wait a second. I was like, that's a pickleball paddle.
I've seen that. I think they just used that for the next person in line.
That's exactly what it was.
That's
exactly what it was. I was kind of fooling you guys there, but but I thought, I went up to them and I was like, you guys have pickleball paddles? And then she was like, what's pickleball? And I was like, oh wait, that's the pickleball paddle. She was like, oh, we just use it to call the next person up in line.
Love it.
And I was like, oh.
Gotta say, Nike's onto something. It's never
I know.
Workshop.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking the first time, and I was super wrong.
Yeah.
But
wow.
We live and we learn, folks. So
well, let's go back to this. You said you're talking about the low barrier of entry. So now that we're on this, so what does it take? Like Brett, like if I was anybody and I had some money, what would it look like? Like how easy is it for me to start a paddle company right now?
All right, so you probably have 2 options. Easy option is to go to Alibaba.com, put in a keyword pickleball paddle, and you're going to see most of your favorite paddle shapes just pop right up, right?
Jeez.
They have sample prices. They have minimum order quantities. The folks that are behind the scenes building paddles, and most of them are, running at capacity. They are filling orders. That's the business they're in. They do a very good job of filling orders. And if you want to make an order, they will fill it for you. They will tell us how many samples you want, what models you want. And then when you're ready to place an order, we'll accept your artwork for a logo, and we'll talk about packaging. And they are very professional, and they provide a service, and those factories are making paddles, at full steam.
Wow.
So that's option 1, right?
Okay.
Option 2 is if you know enough about where the paddles are being made, you could go directly to the source, and you could talk directly to the folks that represent the factories and save yourself a lot of time. You can ask for a catalog and order samples. And again, very professional. They provide a service. They are making pickleball paddles whenever the lights are on. They may not turn the lights off, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
So you need, the blank, not the blanks, the
molds, right?
Now the molds, a unique mold will cost $1,500 to $2,500, I think.
Okay. And so you can give them specs on just like, I want it this thick, and then also this circumference or whatever, the edge.
You find a shape that you want to try that it's not in their catalog, that would be a unique mold.
Wow.
And
what's like a standard mold cost?
Probably $2,500.
Okay.
Right. But minimum order quantity, some of these, unit costs are $9 to $12 at factories. Some of the more high-end factories that make some of the, our favorite brands are $28 to $36 per unit. Right. So you're talking about, minimum order quantities. I've seen them as low as 200. I've seen them, typically 2,000, 5,000, 10,000. There's probably only a few companies that are ordering in quantities above that.
Yeah.
But again, the conversation, the question was, what's the barrier to entry? And
So a few $1,000 basically.
I could make you a Briones Pickleball brand. I think it's
hey.
whatever your minimum order is, and then
Yeah.
you're gonna send in, I believe it's 6 samples to USA Pickleball. A gentleman named Carl Schmitz. He's behind the scenes of all the equipment standards. He's on that committee. I think he leads that committee. Very smart guy. He has an aerospace background, I believe.
Yeah.
But his labs test and approve the paddles, and you get to keep the stamp on it. It says USA Pickleball approved, and I think that cost is, I may have said I think it's $2,500, and you have to do that for every model, right? So if you have an elongated model, or a more traditional model, that's $5,000.
Yeah, but you do it once, and then after that, all the other ones are approved.
Correct.
Right.
Coming out of the factory, they are approved.
So that's the problem, and we're going to talk about batches and delamination soon. But so that's where the issue.
I think that's the issue for the Paddlegate 1.0. That's where that started about surface roughness. I think it's a different issue for what happened last week with Paddlegate 2.0.
Yeah.
Pickleball is obviously going crazy, and as it's getting crazier, the Paddlegates just keep on coming. How many do you think? How many more do you think we're gonna have?
It's just part of the industry, right? You've got a lot of folks excited and wanting to be a part of it, and I think that new companies, small companies, are going to try to push the limits and be aggressive. I think they're going to ride the waves of when things are going their way and people are talking favorably about what they're putting out there. Things are good. Let's press the gas and see what we can get, and then. What happens over time is, you might get out in front of your skis a little bit. You have people, saying, I've played you before. That paddle, is different than how you were able to play me a week ago.
Right.
Something's different. Yeah. And, if it goes through some scrutiny, it may have some red flags to it. Right. I think that's what's going on last week.
Yeah.
Right. You crossed, too many competitive players going out there trying to win money and wanting to have a level playing field. And again, I think when we get into the questions you're going to ask me, is this on purpose? Right. And
okay. Well, we'll jump into Paddlegate 2.0. And for those of the viewers and listeners out there, we'll get really specific here. Let's start with Paddlegate 1.0. And it was the first problem and issue for everybody. I don't even know when this was. It was about 6 months ago, or
it was Open last year at US Open. So April. So
mid US Open.
Yeah, almost a year ago.
All right, almost a year ago. So it was the grit. Okay, so that was the very first. And again, it makes sense, right? We're playing with a very hard surface relatively, and to create spin, I always tell my students and stuff like that the spin really doesn't come. It comes from the paddle, but your technique is really the most important thing. But let's talk about the grit. Obviously, the rougher it is, it makes sense. That's going to grip the ball and going to apply more spin. So what do you see? Obviously, right now there's a test out there and let's talk about what is that test called? The device?
Steroid surface roughness reader.
Yeah, and your man Tracy in there, he obviously has that. He tests all the paddles in there, making sure they're legal and stuff after he fixes them. But like, what is that process like? And then we you talked about this new process that maybe the PPA or something is going to implement.
Sure. All right. So surface roughness was the big issue last year.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like you said, being able to generate more spin than an opponent that has a paddle with less surface roughness.
Yeah.
So is it a fair playing field, especially if there's a standard in place? So I think the cause of it, if I were to guess, was nothing nefarious. It was not somebody out there trying to press the limits. I don't believe that. I don't think any pro was out there measuring their own paddles and saying, it has a USA Pickleball approved sticker, but lucky me, mine's going to be, twice as rough as this other one that my sponsor sent me. I'm going to use this one over. I don't think that's what's happening. I think it's I think it's more of the fact that they weren't testing. I think the idea is you go through the motions and you order your paddles, and you know that the 6 that the factory sends you that says, here's your 6 samples, we've tested them, they're going to be compliant with the surface roughness standard. Go ahead and send them in. You're in a good shape at that point.
Wow.
What's your follow-up, right? Do you have a third party that is going to test every single paddle coming off the production line before it's put in someone's hands? Probably not. You're probably going to, have the packaging and wrapping, and you're hoping for the best because the 6 that you sent in for approval got approved, and it's not your problem, right?
So that I see the future there, right? We need the USAPA or somebody, whoever the organization is, they need a third party just constantly testing batches then.
Well,
is that the solution?
Yeah, Paddlegate 1.0 was focused on one company, CRBN, right? And I'm basing, some of this, some of my opinion is just based on their response, which I thought was incredibly professional at the time and the way they handled their business and made a comeback this year. But I believe their reaction to their paddles being removed from the approved list of pickleball paddles was to put a serial number on each batch so that they could run smaller batches, have a third party test those batches as far as the surface roughness reading, and then have confidence that in anybody's hands, those paddles were going to be in compliance with a USA Pickleball standard.
Right.
I don't know if other companies are going to those lengths.
Yeah.
I will tell you that paddles that come through our shop, we'll put on, a new edge guard, we'll fix handles cracks, we'll measure it, and, some are in compliance, some aren't. I don't think it's an issue of trying to skirt the rules. I think it's just an issue of mass production of a product and, lack of oversight. So I'm a big fan of where USA Pickleball is headed. I think you brought it up that the Steroid reader, it's only a few $100, right? In the last year, there's the big controversy is when you have folks trying to do the test at home.
Yeah.
Even some paddle companies went out and, tried to prove that their paddles were in compliance by doing the Steroid test and having it, the average of 6 different, clockwork readings. And
basically, real quick on the Steroid test, it basically, it calculates
it's just counting the grit, basically. It's not
the distance between a peak and a valley at one point.
Right.
Got it. So, and you can have different readings at different points on the paddle, right? Here in the center or on top. And you can also have different readings depending on which direction the reader is facing. Yeah. So there's a whole rhyme and reason to it. But again, my point is the Steroid reader is not terribly expensive. It's a few $100.
Right.
Maybe it's $1,000. The technology that USA Pickleball and Carl Smits is going to be adopting is much more expensive and accurate. I think it's something to do with laser graphing. But it's my understanding is that typically it's done in a lab setting. So I believe the comments I heard today from Connor Pardo is, at least with the PPA, they're trying to figure out a way to bring lab testing on tour so that you can, give everybody confidence that their paddles are in compliance.
Well, I was talking to someone like today about, they got to figure out a way that they can test any paddle just a couple minutes before a match very easily. If they can't do that, then, like right now, whatever the whole controversy about carbon not being banned right now, but like as DJ Young said, like they can take your paddle and test it after the tournament. Right.
You take on the risk as a player to play with any paddle, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And they brought it up that a different paddle, not a player's paddle, but a different paddle did not pass inspection. And so it was something that was on radar, and they said, just play at your own risk. And, I didn't actually pay attention to what he actually played with that tournament, but, again, not surprising that you have a different production issue coming to light. And, if it provides an advantage, folks raising their hand and saying, I think there's something off here. So I believe if we want to dive into kind of Paddlegate 2.0, I can give you, some background from, who I think the hero of all this, Tracy Wallstock, and let him say it in his own words, how you at home can test for delaminated paddles. And maybe before you press play, do you want to kind of give what the feedback from the top players was about raising their hand and saying, I think something's off with this paddle.
So before that, we're going to jump right into Paddlegate 2.0.
Okay.
But I do So viewers, stay tuned. But I do want to talk about the grit on paddles. Okay, so right here, we got SLK, Control, great paddle, Selkirk. Now, let's talk about the grit, because you mentioned something about there's a way that they could apply it, right? There's only a couple ways that grit is applied. And what are they again?
You have applied grit, typically
grit?
on a paddle like this, like a fiberglass.
So is that is it a spray? Like, what does applied mean?
That's trade secret.
Okay, and it's different materials.
It's the equivalent of powder or sand. But
Okay,
it's
powder or
it's
sand. Got it.
It's anything that would have a rough property to it, right?
And then what is the other way of applying grit? Or just basically what the material
where you go to the material itself, where the material has an inherent surface roughness. So the raw carbon fiber being at that thickness is where kind of the industry testing is kind of focused everybody on that thickness as approved.
Well, you know what's crazy to me is like with Paddlegate 1, like I actually had like a carbon demo over at Legacy, and I was like, oh, like I don't know why, but it kind of just intrigued me, and I was like, well, let me look at this really quickly. And I mean, I'll be honest, it hasn't been demoed that much, and like when I looked at the grit comparison from that to like one of the new Yolas, I was like, so you're telling me this Yola is legal, but these carbons aren't? Yeah. So I was just like kind of thrown off, because there was this huge thing last year with carbon and how their paddles were way too gritty and how everyone felt they were unfair. And I'm looking at it now and I'm going, this thing's not even gritty compared to what's out on the market right now.
So yeah, two things. It didn't make sense to me, like what Caden's saying, like if you just feel it with your fingers. And I know it's not a real test, but it's not that big of a difference. And secondly, I guess my question would be, it's just material. Like there's no material in the world that is going to be applied or anything that's not going to wear over time, right? Everything's going to wear. Right.
And the reason for the trade secret comment is simply that I believe that paddle companies are going to start differentiating themselves based on an applied grit, right? I think that's probably where the next generation of paddles is going to come from. Is can you accurately apply
a legal grit
that will last.
Yeah. So that's all we're talking about here, because like it's like paddle companies are going to experiment with different things, but as long as we have a legal limit, they're going to push the limit. And what paddle company can make the applied grit last the longest, right?
If you were here a year ago, Jordan, I mean, this business would be so easy.
Man, I need to be a consultant or something, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's Paddlegate 1.0. And what do you think? So, I mean, has that kind of been resolved, like right now, I guess, because of the stare, what is it? Stare test?
Stare test. No, I mean, like I said, I think it's ignorance is bliss, right? You get your 6 paddles that are, from the factory are going to pass inspection. You send them in with confidence. You get that approval. Like I said, we PaddleFix provides the service, but we also go ahead and test these paddles. And, again, the paddles that come through are not from, it's not these top pros sending us paddles they want to play with for the next 3 months. It's your rec players that want to, they found a paddle they love. They saved up for it. They paid for it. They don't want to buy another $200 paddle. And so they pay $50 to Tracy, and he puts it back together in a way that will give it some longevity and also have it play the way that hopefully that paddle company intended it to play.
Right.
So,
yeah. All right. Well, good information, Brett. We're going to hop right into Paddlegate 2.0.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's been several podcasts. There's a lot of things going on. Delamination. That's the big thing now. I didn't even know what the heck that was. I can guess because I know what lamination is.
There you go.
Now, if delamination is the opposite or the lack of lamination, then I don't know. Is that why don't you explain what that is to the viewers, or should we just tee in the video here?
Let's let our hero take it away.
All right, here we go. So right now we're gonna pull up a video.
I hear a lot of them.
Oh
wow, that was quick.
Okay.
All right, well, do your thing, Tracy.
We're gonna pull up a video of your partner Tracy talking about. So in this video, what is this specifically about delamination?
He's going to give you, his thoughts on, what delamination is, I'll tell you that the controversy last week was that a delaminated paddle, which has a separation between the surface and the core material, was providing an advantage to those players, right? So a few weeks ago, some companies were riding a high and saying, we've got the most powerful paddle out there. We're body bagging people from the baseline, cool social media posts, very cool stuff, right?
Right.
Now it's on more of a low, right? The reason for those powerful paddles was delamination and, the trampoline effect that it was generating. And, it's interesting how people talk about it as a competitive advantage and a, almost like a cheating scandal.
Right.
When, in my opinion, last year, a delaminated paddle was part of a bad batch as far as factory production. This year, sitting here today, I think it was part of
the best paddle on the market.
No, in my opinion, I think it's still part of a bad batch, right? It won't pass a test as far as putting pressure on the paddle face and testing for that rebound, but it's a factory flaw, right? And I think the way that folks are talking about that and how they're going to go about fixing it is very interesting to me, because we see delaminated paddles all the time, and I'll tell you, it's not as simple a fix as a lot of folks are saying. But again, let's not steal Tracy's thunder here.
Let's tee up the video.
Oh, hold on. Got to mention one thing, right? One of the answers to this is more testing. And those testing, as you can imagine, how in the world are we going to test for this delaminated paddle, and how can we do it on site, and what's the cost, right? And I'll tell you, I think it's pretty obvious. And so with that, now I'll let Tracy take it away.
All right.
So right now we're pulling up a video of his partner in crime, Tracy.
Not crime. We're doing good.
Okay.
Partner in
it was a
pickleball justice.
It wasn't literally.
Oh, I know.
Okay. Partner in justice.
Yeah.
Tracy Waldrum.
Tracy Wallstad.
Wallstad.
Yes,
okay. All right. Here we go.
I hear a lot of that my paddle doesn't feel the same, it doesn't sound the same, and it doesn't hit the same. Either there's not as much power as it was, or it just feels weird. Here's why. It is delaminated. So what does that mean? That means that the surface, either one surface or two, have separated in a spot of the entire surface, or in a certain section of the surface, has separated from the underlying core. This core is polypropylene, so what does that mean? How do you know it is delaminated? Well, a number of ways. Take your knuckle and just pound on it, okay, and go up the paddle, and you can hear a change in the sound. So this is still good, that's good. In this area, the surface is still attached. Now as we go up, you're gonna hear a noticeable change in the sound. Oh, what's that? That is a delamination. That's good. Not good. This area is good. So right here, almost right where the sweet spot is, it is delaminated. Okay? Now you can also use a pickleball. And I'm gonna hit the ball in a good area, and I'll hit it in the delaminated area. And this is why a lot of players say it sounds funny. As soon as I hear that complaint, I know it's delaminated. So here is in a good area. That is a good sound, good sound. Now here's the delaminated area. You hear that? That is a delaminated paddle, and it does not sound good. So again, delaminated area, and this is how it should sound right now. It should sound like that, because I'm hitting it in a good part of the paddle. Now again, I'm going to go to the delaminated area. Tracy, my paddle sounds funny. What is that? Your paddle is delaminated.
Okay. Well,
Did you take that video?
I did take that video.
All
all
right.
right. Well, Tracy, and
Saw
by
the future. I knew
Film
this
work
was
is
gonna
pretty
happen.
good. I'm not gonna lie.
wow. And that, by the way, that was the Electrum, which was that the
Electrum
newest one?
Pro. No, that was the first one.
Yeah, but it's not. I don't know how long that player had the paddle.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think delamination doesn't automatically trigger a bad batch unless you have pros
Yeah.
claiming a delaminated paddle because they are not practicing with that paddle for weeks and then be like, oh, you know what, I got something here. It's happening relatively quickly. So when a rec player brings something in, they may be playing with it for a year or two and way past a warranty period and all that. So it doesn't matter if it's Electrum or anyone else. It's not a doesn't mean anything.
Well, that was a good explanation. I gotta say, Tracy looks like he worked on some aircraft, like carriers or something.
Yeah. Well, what's funny about delamination is I actually almost signed with that new company called Vatic Pro. All right. When they came out with their paddle, I'm not gonna lie, I looked at it and I was like, this looks pretty nice. I'm not gonna lie, this looks, better if not similar to what Yola's making out here. And when I tried it, it had way more pop than like your normal 14 millimeter paddle. It had way more feel than your normal 14 millimeter paddle. And I thought my paddle was on crack. I mean, literally, I was like, this paddle is absolutely insane. And as I used it more, that sound that Tracy had just talked about,
Really?
I would tell people, I'd be like, God, I don't know why, but my paddle sounds like a freaking shotgun. I'm not kidding. Right?
You should just call it the shot.
I would go like this before I hit shots. I'd go like that. And like, it didn't make sense to me at the time.
So you didn't tell me about this. This is about your Vatic.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, but when I used it, I was like, dude, this is kind of insane. But like now, when I look at like this video and I used a paddle like that from like Electrum, I was like, oh man, this thing's dead. I toss it,
Should have sent it to PaddleFix.
I should have. I think this was when I was living in the Bay still. But.
You'll notice that delamination is not on our menu of services.
Oh, it's not?
No, we view it as a bad batch of factory flaw. So if it's within warranty, we recommend sending it back to the paddle company.
Yeah,
right. Okay. We're not in the business of trying to fix
relamination. Oh, that's the word.
Oh,
relamination.
Can you relaminate my paddle, please? I don't think that's how that works. But anyways, that's actually probably a good thing. That's probably a good thing because I feel like people are looking at delamination right now and going, "Oh, I want that." Right? So like, and it's crazy because you look at this and you're like, "Oh, okay, so it's not that great." But when you look at all these companies who have been getting all of this kind of like shade thrown at them by players, people are looking at it and probably going, "Well, shoot, we should try it." Right? I mean, like my dad used to tell me all the time, he would always say, Caden, there's no such thing as bad marketing. No such thing.
What is that?
And, well, it means whether someone is bashing your brand
there you go.
or talking highly about your brand, they're still marketing they're still talking about your brand.
I think Carbon, that was a good thing for them. They exploded after that.
Well, think about it this way. When Carbon went through Paddlegate 1.0, guess what? Everybody was just dying to try their new ones.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't know, maybe it was something that you mentioned where like all of these companies that are getting, let's say, I wouldn't say crapped on, but talked about by Ben, Annalie,
People
Leia.
Are raising their hands.
People are going,
something's different.
So there is an advantage to this paddle.
So real quick, back to 2.0, the delamination part since we're talking about. What is the advantage of having a delaminated paddle? Is it just because it's separated, it's supposed to give more pop? Is that like the main thing? I
mean, at the highest levels, I think there's a few advantages, right? It's the idea that you get a trampoline effect,
right?
A little bit more power. I would argue that a delaminated paddle is going to be more inconsistent.
Yeah, I would think the touch and the resets are not the same.
But when you think about hand battles, and
right.
the difference of somebody with, you talk about fast hands and the elite players and the ability to get 2 inches behind a ball and going forward versus 4 inches behind. Well, some of those players aren't able to get 4 inches behind a ball before they go forward. They're only able to get 2. But if they are, getting the same pop as the folks with faster hands, all of a sudden they're jumping up the ranks and beating people that,
different game.
Previously they weren't able to beat. So again, I get why they raise their hand. What's interesting, and I love the conversation between the both of you about how to break down this issue. It's different for the pros than it is for a rec player.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, a delaminated paddle is a it's a faulty paddle. It will break. It'll crack. The surface will crack, because that's what happens when you keep hitting a ball where there's air between a paddle face and the paddle surface, is that it is going to lead to a broken paddle.
Right.
It's not, maybe for a short window of time, you feel there's an advantage. And I think at the pro level, when they're using paddles for a very short window of time, they make the most of that window. But, you put this paddle, and if everybody's ordering these paddles to get an advantage, they are, they're doing so, at their own risk, because, again, it's a delaminated paddle.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say, when I used that Vatic, the lifespan of it wasn't crazy long, but like...
Well, let me ask you this. The Vatic, when you bought it to where it delaminated, what was the time frame there? Do you know?
Month and a half.
Oh, wow.
But then again, you got to remember something. I hit a lot of balls, not just playing, but teaching as well. So like, I would say I had it for about a month and a half. And I would say the prime of that paddle was probably at like 3 weeks to a month.
Okay.
And then kind of towards the end of it, like it started to kind of lose its grit.
No, you're mistaken. The prime, when it's got delaminated, that's when you had the most power.
Yeah, no, I know. But I had the most power. I just didn't, like, I lost a lot of grit already, but like it was still super jumpy.
Yeah, I got
Like I played in that Legacy Championship at the end of November last year, or maybe beginning of December, and that paddle was so freaking poppy. Like I don't even know really how I used it or controlled it, but like.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is that benefit of the doubt. I like these smaller companies, the newer companies. I like the claims they make. Right. If true, that's a really cool thing to be able to offer more power. And you know what? If a new paddle plays a certain way, then benefit of the doubt, maybe they do have some cool design advantages that they've put in. Unfortunately, in this instance, it's just, it's a bad batch that they will work through. But if you have a paddle that plays the way it's intended, and it's everything secure, the edge guard keeps all the layers together, these companies are going to jump back right in the face of the big companies, because they believe in their product. So I don't think they're gone for long. I don't know if they're going to be gone at all, but I fully expect if they believe in their product, that they're not.
They'll make some changes.
Yeah. Right. I think the comments from the companies were, or maybe it was some of the folks that do the testing and also have podcasts, but they were in communication with their sources, and the paddle companies are going to try new glue and better glue, heat resistant glue, because this specific paddle, I guess, was a thermoform where it was pressed. The materials were pressed under high temperatures.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on that, right? Because the whole Paddlegate 2.0 delamination, Ben Johns called out some companies there. There was a lot of tweets back to Ben.
There were.
And on their side, on his ignorance. So what do you think the solution, and we saw that, I think it was Pickleball Studios. I think it was them where they were talking about what was the solution, and it was like the glue or more glue or whatever. And we talked off podcast about that may or may not be the solution. So what are your thoughts on, just apply more glue and hopefully that works?
That might work. It's a nice talking point to move on from an issue and recognizing that they were not intending to put out a delaminated paddle or a paddle that delaminated quickly. I think it's, it's too easy to say, we'll just put more glue on, or, we'll try the heat resistant glue this time. I think a lot of this is, you're talking about a mass produced product.
Yeah.
It is the variation in the assembly process.
In China, right? Like all the paddles, there's some, Selkirk, there's some paddles companies that are still made in US, but pretty much is China
overseas,
or any other, besides China, are the paddles made in other countries too, or is it just China?
I'm aware of a few other countries.
Okay.
India, Taiwan.
Okay.
But 95%
is Neo Pipo actually in India?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't see a lot of Neo Pipo paddles come through.
Yeah.
I have not. So
maybe I'll have to bring you one.
Yeah, just to take it apart. Normally we buy new paddles when they come out, just to take it apart, and especially if we see some cool social media claims of this paddle is got it all: power, consistency, accuracy, spin. We'll get our hands on it and take a look.
Yeah. Neopipo is actually like one of those brands that, I mean, personally, I would never use, but I probably most commonly see when I teach.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just because it's cheap. You can get it on Amazon.
Wait, you see a lot of those?
Ton of them. I
see zero, dude. I haven't
Really?
seen anybody. The only person I saw playing with it was Frank Anthony Davis.
I also teach beginner one clinics for like people who literally are coming out to play pickleball for the first time ever.
Dude, there's got to be a Neopipo rep around here. That's probably what it is.
So I brought some pictures of things that we get to see in the workshop. I think it might be interesting just to show your audience.
All right, so we're gonna hop into some pictures at the factory, the PaddleFix factory here.
PickleFix.
You can go to that first one.
All right. So what are we? Okay, hold on. I'm gonna try my best here. But what are we looking at here, Brett?
So you're looking at an edge guard that was cracking, right? The edge guard a little bit more plastic than rubber. You're looking at some foam that's put under the edge guard, right? Anybody that
is this considered Theraformed, or what is it? Therabody?
I don't think so. I think this is just pressed.
Okay.
And then you're putting foam in on the edges to reduce vibration.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty cool idea. But some of the foam, some of the way it's applied, too much, too little, the wrong ones, in combination with your materials choices for an edge guard, which is a cheap piece of plastic, but sometimes a factory may choose a cheaper version of that plastic, right?
Is it plastic or rubber? Is that the same?
In describing it more,
okay.
The ones that are cracking, especially here in Arizona where it's so dry, would have more plastic properties than rubber properties, right? So again, this is a cause that, once the edge guard is not holding things together, it could be prone to delamination. It doesn't mean that this one is, but that's just, a picture as an example of something we'd see.
And this is one of the biggest things that you guys fix, right?
An edge guard, right?
Yeah.
We try to keep we like the paddle company. We want to keep players playing with their favorite paddles. We're not convincing them to move away.
Yeah.
They send us their paddle. They say we want to keep playing with it, and we bring it back to them.
Okay, so that was a little edge guard mishap there. What do we got here? What are we looking at here, Brad?
Oh.
So this one
that's honeycomb, right?
It is it's polypropylene honeycomb, right? You'll see it's a little bit darker on Jordan on your side than on my side. It just means that on the piece that he's holding up in the air, that he's peeling back, you'll see that the adhesive was either disproportional on that side versus towards the center where the screwdriver is, where it's a little bit lighter. That's where the delamination occurred. And again, we don't know if it's a new paddle or a 2-year-old paddle. We don't know how many times a week this player played with it.
Yeah.
But, there's two ways that this could have led to delamination. Either it's, the adhesive wasn't evenly covered throughout, or when it was in a press, that press didn't, apply even pressure.
Got it.
Right. So that would be another factory issue. Again, if it's delaminated, factory issue, send it back. These things are under warranty.
Right.
It happens.
All right.
Let's go to the next one.
All right. What would you call these little honeycomb things?
This is the honeycomb core. This is what happens when you actually take the honeycomb core out of a paddle.
Wow. Okay. So real quick, everyone who knows about honeycomb has been around for decades.
Yeah.
What the heck is it? What is it made out of? What is honeycomb? What does that even mean?
I think it's the shape, right? It's that hexagonal.
Is it a form of plastic?
It kind of looks like straws, right? Like you took straws and glued them together and cut them to whatever width you wanted the.
Or kind of like a beehive.
Yeah.
But it's like more or less plastic then.
Yeah. But you
That's
can
what it
see
is.
that playing and hitting over and over and over, these, this honeycomb core is pretty degraded, right? Even if it had adhesive on it, to begin with, this player over time has, really put the paddle to, through its paces. So it,
now is it the shape, right, of the honeycomb? Like it's a cylinder, right? And it looks like a lot of cylinders back to
a little
back.
bit more. The new ones are hexagonal. If you go back a picture, you'll see that hexagonal.
Okay,
shape.
but it's like a straw. We can cut up a straw or a hex straw, whatever. But is it that shape that compresses a little bit? Like why that shape? Why not just have
It's a strong shape.
Why not just have carbon fiber, just layers of carbon fiber? Like why this?
I think that's what Gearbox does.
Oh, is that what Gearbox
Yeah, I think
does?
if I didn't bring a picture, but I'm pretty sure if we were to, saw open a Gearbox, it looks different. It's not a honeycomb core. It's got, I don't know. We'll have to look that up separately. But
Well, in Gearbox, I mean, they're proud of that, I think, right? I mean, they talk about...
They're the first to not do honeycomb.
Yeah,
It's
right.
One of the first.
yeah, they're the only paddle company that is going out of their way for players not to buy new paddles.
Yeah.
Right? If
Well, they're
people that
indestructible, but I
bragging about their paddle from 2016, and they had the original. I mean, I used to be sponsored by Gearbox and met the team, and they stand behind their products. They really promote durability, and I think they're a big time racquetball
Yeah.
Yes.
They are.
company, and so I think they may have their own factory or more control over the factory. That produces.
Rafa's a good guy.
Yeah.
Shout out to Rafa, and
no.
he they are indestructible, but you lose the touch. That's why I didn't like them.
Well, actually, have you ever tried their original SST, like GX5?
No,
It's ridiculous. It's crazy how good that paddle is.
really.
Yeah. So Victor, right?
Oh,
Victor
right from Legacy.
from Legacy.
Yes.
Yeah.
He uses that paddle and he swears by that paddle, and he is freaking really good with that paddle. And like, actually, at one point, when I wasn't sponsored, I said, "Hey, let me borrow one of these for just a week or so." I think I ended up using it for like,
You liked it, huh?
a few months. I used it for a few months, and then finally I was like, okay, well, hey, like maybe I'll, look into some maybe like a Gearbox sponsorship. And they were like, oh yeah, we want our players to use our newer products. And I was like, okay, well, I'll give them a go. And
And it wasn't.
I'm not gonna lie, I tried those new, not the new ones,
Yeah.
but like the new Control and the Power series, where they were just like GX5, and they came out with that GX6 series where they were like red, orange, blue, green, and they were completely different paddles.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, maybe.
No, I brought my paddles here that I've played with, right? So I went from Babolat and just from a surface roughness, I wore through the surface, the applied grit.
Yeah.
Right. Those are kind of like the Franklins where.
Right, quicker than one. I really loved the paddle, but I was abusing their warranty policy, and they made clear that I was,
that you were doing that.
Now, not to go back to Paddlegate 1.0,
Sure.
but okay, this is my personal feeling, and I opened it up because obviously I'm an instructor. I teach a lot of people. Caden, you instruct.
Yeah.
The grit to me, even if you take something like just fiberglass, and then you compare it with a new carbon and new Yola, yeah, you can tell a difference, but like to me, it's not like we're not talking about sandpaper here. You know what I mean? It's still way less than that. So to me, it's not that big of an issue to me.
You wouldn't
I don't know. Do you feel that way?
No, I can tell you, it's for my game, and to again, just another banger out there.
Yeah.
It's room for error, right? So if I'm playing someone in singles, and I'm aiming, 2-3 inches over the net, 4 inches.
It's the top
5
spin.
inches,
Yeah.
right? Top spin to bring it down.
Yeah.
You can only hit the ball as hard as you have enough spin to bring it back down.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I'm aiming, 3-4 inches over the net, and my opponent is hitting the ball just as hard and is aiming 6 inches, 12 inches, 18 inches over the net, and it's still coming down, I'm going to start playing with whatever they're playing with.
Right.
Right. It's just an obviousness factor that I know that from my background playing tennis and having a two-handed forehand, right?
Did
where
you?
I would hold.
Wow, 204, huh?
So I would hold top hand here, almost a full Western, right? So I know
Yeah, full Western.
hitting a one-handed, forehand, and I hit pretty hard, right? But I'm generating a ton of spin because I'm holding a grip that's more extreme than everyone else. I'll tell you that.
Now in pickleball, what are you, Eastern grip, right?
No,
Forehand?
I don't change grip at all. I just keep it Western. Yeah,
I gotta see that.
I got to see your backhand.
I gotta see your forehand.
I don't hit backhand.
Is it really wet?
got that.
Show me your grip.
I'm holding the paddle up here,
Oh, you are.
Yeah, so
that's
I
how
keep
you hit your forehand.
pretty close face. So I generate a ton of spin, right? So catch is very important to me. And
Wow.
if I'm playing somebody that is hitting hard and hitting higher over the net, it's odds are they've got some advantage that I don't.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so let's jump into the next pick. What do we got here, Brett? What do we got going on?
Oh, so this is just, you take the edge guard off. This is what it looks like. Sometimes when you take the edge guard off, that surface is going to be,
That's
adhered.
that's delaminated, or
It is delaminated,
He's
right?
just pulling it off.
We got this paddle in for an edge guard replacement. And of course, you test for, any other deficiencies. And in this case, we found delamination. So we helped this customer go back to their paddle company and say, hey, look, we have a customer here. We found delamination.
Wow.
What can you do for them? Right. Sometimes they'll send a replacement. Sometimes if it's after warranty, they'll still send a replacement. Most times if it's after warranty, they'll send a discount code for a new paddle. And since we don't recommend fixing delamination, because we could, but you're adding weight, you're adding adhesive.
Yeah.
It's
You
for
guys
us,
would be
we
basically
move
making a
on
new
from that paddle. Yeah, we
Right.
just move on.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's a little delam there. Last pick here.
Ooh, that's cool.
It looks like a heart.
Sometimes they're completely delaminated. Sometimes they just fall off, right?
Oh, as soon as you take the edge guard
Take
off?
the edge guard off. Sometimes you just kind of peel it back and they come all the way off, right?
Wow.
Wow.
So you want to talk about why we got,
What is this one right here? What paddle?
I can't tell you, which is why I gave you this picture.
Nice.
But I'll tell you, go into a tournament and
It's definitely not a Selkirk, I'll tell you that.
definitely not. No, Team Selkirk, this would not happen. I'll tell you, when I first met Tracy, before I told him about the idea of, hey, taking the Mad Paddler concept and actually providing a service for players, right, with PaddleFix, and telling them, if you do this right, you're going to know more about the paddle industry than the paddle industry itself. You're going to be the guy. And I think he liked that story I told him, and we moved forward. But before we started it, we met at a tournament, and we went around to the new paddles that were being sold at that event. And, we would go around and we would just kind of just push up lightly on the edge guard. And, I think it was just over half the paddles had a loose edge guard before any of them.
Or even being sold.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, for us, it wasn't surprising. It was surprising to, go and test it. But, these are expensive paddles. I'd recommend them if you're going to go buy a paddle, go out and go to your local retailer that you like and give them the local business, but also, just check out the paddle, right? Because one of the obvious things is at least a sandwiched honeycomb paddle that has an edge guard, right? Not a gearbox or a hot and mold or whatever these are.
Yeah.
The idea is that, sometimes the folks that are installing edge guards aren't, installing it necessarily the way that company is hoping. So you just, you just do your due diligence and buy the one that's secure,
Right.
and know that a paddle will play better longer if it is all held together.
Well, quality control, it seems like that's one of the main things that we're talking about here. Overseas, I would just guess it's very, very hard to do that, right? Like, I'm sure it's a lot easier, like maybe companies like Selkirk and some other companies that still at least put their paddles together, and here in the U.S., that quality control is much easier, right?
I think you can look at a paddle company's warranty and quickly size up what control they have or don't have. The longer warranty, the replacement warranty is what you're really looking for.
Yeah.
I think it's a tough to run a business if you have paddles being sent back to you, not only from a cost standpoint, but also from just a brand damage of, folks talking about what they're using and what they're not using and why. Right. So it's in everyone's interest that if a flaw or a defect or a paddle is coming apart, that, that customer is able to have, a positive outcome, right? A positive experience going through that customer service process.
Yeah.
But you did bring up a good point of, why aren't there more, made in America paddles, right?
Because it's expensive.
It's very expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But would you pay for a more expensive paddle?
Heck yeah, you would. I think anybody would.
If you had a paddle that played like some of the claims that are being made, that,
it was a guarantee. Oh,
And
why not?
Yep.
Everyone
talks about Selkirk Labs too, about how expensive it is. But, hey, they make them here. And I'm pretty sure it's lifetime warranty, right? You get it back.
Hey, before I was sponsored by them, I bought one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I said, I can't buy another unless I'm sponsored.
There you go.
But
Smart man.
no, they've been a great team.
Yeah.
We'll all attest to here.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, I would say one of the biggest topics that kind of dropped in pickleball that a pro put out, and of course a bunch of pros responded to, and then of course it got blasted on Facebook and Instagram and all that, was what's more of an advantage, paddles or steroids? I mean, I already know my answer, but I would love to hear your answer, because obviously you know a lot about paddles. I'm not saying you know a lot about steroids, but I think we all kind of know what steroids do.
We don't know. He may.
This is what 7 years of CrossFit looks like, guys.
No steroids. None. All right. Tell us what you think about that.
Oh, no, it's for this sport, I don't know. I don't think anybody's using steroids. I think this is the PPA.
Well, we talked about PEDs, not bulk up steroids, but,
No,
but
but
for
I-
endurance.
Yeah.
I think this is pickleball figuring out what it's going to look like when it grows up, which is folks trying to find an advantage at everything and getting ahead of it, having a policy, having expectations of the players that are representing the brand. So I think it's the whole conversation around PEDs in my opinion, I don't know if there's claims now or not, but I think any sport that has reputation on the line needs to cover all its bases. So that's what I think about PEDs. I think paddle technology and the opportunity to put together a high-end paddle that is going to perform the way that, by mistake, some of these are, but do it purposefully in the rules with materials that are consistent, that are going to, again, last the average player months, not weeks, not days, right? I mean, the rumor here that we started with was, again, this is the only rumor I want to share today, which is, signature paddles that degrade quickly are not what need to be put onto the market, right? Because everyone's going to say, I've got this paddle of, $150, $200. It's the same paddle that this player plays with. Yeah. But that's only true for the first day.
Right.
If they're not playing with their paddle on day 2, then your paddle is now different than their paddle. And I think where the companies that are going to invest in true innovation, where they're going to find an edge is going to be on their spin testing, right? What is a new paddle? And I don't care what they score, because it's, it's hard to, I don't think there's a great spin test, but there's been some really cool folks that are putting stuff out. And I think their results generally are consistently showing what's up there. But what I care about is, where are those same paddles after a week and a month and a year? And that's how you give confidence to, your base of customer to say, look, this is a paddle that we believe in, that is going to perform the way that you demo it. It's going to perform like that in 6 months. So you're only going to get better playing with this paddle, more comfortable with it. And I think that's going to be as far as the market goes, that's not where it is today. They're trying to go for, what is that day one? What's my score sheet look like?
Right.
How do I get to the top of the rank? How do I get to the top, quartile of, paddles that are going to be on that list that get promoted? And I think they're missing the point that if that paddle doesn't have that RPM after a week and it goes down by half, I'll tell you, I test my paddles after I'm done using them and they're at 0. Right.
Now, how do you test your spin?
Right.
Like, do you have
no, not spin. Using the surface roughness.
Oh,
right?
the surface.
Okay.
At the sweet spot, they might still be 27s going around, because I'm just curious.
Wait, does it drop to literally 0?
0.
Wow.
I love a Team Selkirk all the way, but I'll play with the 003 until it's smooth in the center, and then I'll move on to the next.
Well, the 003, it's not known for like freaking crazy grit anyway.
Right, it's a soft.
It's a touch paddle.
Again, now you put that in my hands, I'm still gonna swing as hard as I can.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Put the softest paddle in the fastest.
the first 6 months I played pickleball, I played with like the equivalent of a junior paddle. And I had no idea.
I believe
Wait, what junior paddle?
It was like an Onyx Evoke Teardrop, and I loved it. I physically could not.
That's not a junior paddle.
It is an inch shorter than every other paddle on the market.
It's not made for juniors though. It's just
no paddles are made for juniors.
no. They have one.
They have
some. They have some now.
Yeah, well, that's where we need to go. But
Yeah,
I'll tell you, I couldn't hit the ball past the baseline, and I loved it. So the first 6 months of me playing this sport was taking cuts with this paddle that, it was, swing as hard as you want. And then I quickly moved to Bab a lot because I, was hitting the ball harder. And then I went to Gearbox, which, as you can imagine, the evolution of somebody that just wants to swing hard.
Yeah.
I just went out and found the hardest paddle I could find.
Yeah.
There you go.
And
Gearbox.
then I started learning
Right.
more and more about, what I wanted out of a paddle. And I went from one of the thinnest paddles at 11 millimeters
Yep.
Right.
to one of the softest paddles at 20 millimeters with the 003.
Yeah.
So I think, players are over time going to find what fits their game.
For sure.
And, the variety of paddles and having these paddle companies come out with new stuff.
Yep.
I want to, keep it coming. Right.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
No, it's true. I mean, you have to kind of figure out what paddle fits you. I think, personally, for those people who, oh, Ben Johns has a new signature paddle, I'm going to go get that. I mean, just for me, I tell my students all the time, don't buy a paddle unless you've used it, because if you don't know anything about that paddle or what it's going to do to help you out, then you're basically just throwing away $200.
Yeah.
And like, that was one thing that I took a while to figure out because I have no racket background at all. So coming into pickleball, I was like, I don't really know what I want in a pickleball. I just know in a pickleball paddle, I just know when I play well and I know when I don't play well.
Yeah.
And so learning over time, like there was a point where I wanted something a little bit poppier. There was a point where I wanted something softer so I could feel like I could hit the ball a little bit more. I've gone back and forth over the last
Me too.
4.5 years, 5 years of playing pickleball, and it's crazy how I feel like we haven't even tapped into what the pickleball paddle market could be.
Well, again, because of our guidelines, so going to the grid, there's a limit on that. So we're just talking about the longevity of that.
Right.
There's a limit. And then here's a question that I have for both of you, actually, what do you guys think about this? Because the delamination is the biggest thing. Trampoline effect.
Yep.
Power, ultimate power. These guys are seeing it. Oh, there's a defect. There's going to be a point to where, paddles may, without delamination, what if they get that powerful? You know what I mean? There's got to be a test at that point. Like, God, you understand what my question?
Gonna hire you.
No, but I'm saying.
Oh, I'm serious.
No, but then there has to be another test on what is the most that a power. What is the most power?
What's the most power
that a paddle could generate?
Right.
Because then.
No, then you start wearing safety gear, right? You let the game get faster and faster.
Yeah,
you do like highlight where they're wearing like.
Yeah, but it's
got to go out and.
I know it's dangerous.
Yeah.
But,
Hockey
I mean,
gear.
you look at a game like tennis. Okay, we both come from tennis, right? From what I'm aware of, but I don't even think there's rules anymore on rackets, right? On strings, like is there? There's really
there were some strings that I think they were called spaghetti strings that were banned, and they were not. I don't know anything about it, but I know they were called spaghetti strings, and
But my point is, you hear nothing about illegal rackets. I just think that that's not a thing.
No, they set the standards for length, and I think that they do have some. I know for any governing body, they have to have standards for what's allowed. But you're right, they don't have the same controversy. Pickleball has a lot of controversy.
There's so much controversy.
It's
ridiculous.
I guess in your mind now, the question that I just said to you, obviously there's so let's just go to the remember the dollar bill test, or what is that real quick? Can you explain that one? So
this is something that's new to what I've seen as a reaction to delamination and a trampoline effect. How USA Pickleball is going to be addressing that. I believe they're going to be putting a weight, and it's an instrument. It's a big, expensive instrument, but it basically puts a weight of 6 pounds onto the paddle surface, and that paddle surface is not allowed to bend more than the width of a dollar bill, right? So you think about pressing down with 6 pounds of force, this can't bend, right? And so this isn't bending at all.
Yeah.
The honeycomb, as long as it's not, degraded, you're not, or delaminated, you're hoping. But then you get into this paddle, and for the life of me, I couldn't figure out.
Let's hold that up here. The Vice.
This one.
Shout out to Vice, kind of.
Well, this is
Diadem.
Diadem.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they came out with this concept paddle.
Yeah.
I think at the end of last year, early this year, they did a whole Vegas countdown to the launch. It was a pretty cool way to launch.
Yeah, what's crazy is they marketed it as not legal already, not approved, and a lot of people, I see people playing with this.
Yeah, no, they've got
crazy.
I didn't know why it was illegal, right? Because I hadn't seen one, played with one, right? I didn't see people on the courts playing with one until just recently. But I called the owner and I asked him, I said, hey, can I buy a paddle off you? And he sent me one, and I went out, played with it. It's wild. Like
let's get your assessment. Does it make a big difference?
Before I told my assessment, I looked at the comments about this.
Yeah.
And it's like don't buy this basketball shoe because you're going to hit your head on the rim, right? It was like that type of over the top, it's illegal, but it's so illegal that you're going to hurt your friends and family by playing with this. I'll tell you, I kind of believe the hype. I think they were just like giving warnings. Like
really? Because so shout out to Chris Olsen on Pickleball Studio. He did a video on it.
Yeah.
And he said it wasn't in his hand, what he can test, and he played several games with it. He didn't notice a ridiculous amount of difference in spin.
It doesn't. No, I can't generate anywhere near the amount of spin as I can.
Okay, so we're
talking. It's just straight power off the paddle.
Okay, so there is a trampoline effect on this one.
And so you feel with your fingers pressing down, it kind of feels like a. I know it's made of foam, but it kind of feels like a yoga mat under there.
Okay.
Right there's you can feel there's something before.
We got a little yoga going on here.
The surface and the
doing some finger yoga.
I mean, yeah, it gives. It gives.
Yeah.
I guess that's my whole thing, though. Is there a point where, so there's a trampoline, but what I just asked you, like, about, I mean, they're going to have to limit power because there's going to be technologies in the future that can be.
Maybe they knew what they had and they just put these holes in here like the paddle, paddles are just to throw us off. But they knew the trampoline effect was what was really the special sauce. Like, to be honest, I don't know how they came up with this. I think they've added some cool paint to it. I can't, it does not help my game. I cannot play better with it. I do not generate anywhere near the amount of spin because the ball is off the paddle so fast.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Wow. Gonna have
I kind of want to try it now.
You guys
but it's dark
hang
outside.
on to it. You guys hang on to it, play with it here, and let me know what you think.
Yeah.
But rarely if PaddleFix was, and it's a small business. It is always intended to be a small business to support players.
Yeah.
I've had some of the top players in the world ask me to create, reinvent the company to serve, their needs. There's a mosquito out here. The idea that you hear comments of the pros aren't playing with the factory paddles. I believe they are playing with the factory paddles. I know some of the owners. I know some of the owners that sponsor players, and they make sure they test the surface roughness before they send, here's the paddles I want you to play with in a tournament.
But that doesn't mean that some of them aren't.
It doesn't mean there's some of them aren't. It just means some of them might be less than, if the limit is 30 micrometers on one of the scales that, they want their player to be playing with 27s and 28s versus a 17, 18, right? It doesn't mean that in that batch of paddles, there are 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. I'm confident that the paddles that they're sending to their pros are, at least the company I have in mind is making sure that if that paddle is ever tested, it is going to be compliant.
Okay, cool.
All right. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah. Well, Brett, you know what? One of the things that people listening and watching may not know about you, you're a really good player, 5.0 plus pro player yourself.
Appreciate that.
And
Thanks.
I would say so. I would concur with that statement.
And
I would.
I guess my question to you would be, where do you see this game? So we talked about like kind of paddles, and you can kind of work that in, but just the game in general, strategy, maybe technique, different shots. Where do you see the game going from here? Like if you were to just dream or imagine, like how much change do you think is coming in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think it's gonna be wild. Everyone says that, the top players today aren't going to be the top players. I don't believe that. I think the top players are there for a reason. I think they are controlling.
You think the top players today in 5 years are still going to be the top players?
Anna Leigh Waters is what, 16?
Okay, let's take Anna Leigh out. Okay, we'll take Anna Leigh and we'll take
Ben
Because
Johnson.
remember, we're talking about top 5 men's and top 5 women's. Now, if Annalie and Ben are still in the top, we're talking about 2 to 4 or 2 to 5.
I think tennis players coming into the sport as just pure ball strikers are going to work their way up through a ranking.
Oh, for sure, in singles.
In singles,
For
yes.
sure.
I think the tours are motivated to have their pros, especially PPA having that as a product. The top pros in the game playing every week. It's an advantage because they are playing each other. They are separating themselves. They're not. It's going to take quite an athlete to come in and break through that type of training and experience. But I do think in the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to have tennis players, just pure ball strikers that are able to shape shots.
Yeah.
As the paddles become what some of the claims are, you're going to see room for error of 2 to 3 feet over the net in singles, bringing the ball back down into the court. Right. Right now, you see drives that are almost aimed at the net tape, where it's the peak is just over the net and it's curling right back down. The room for error is so low compared to what I think it could be, and I think that's where you get paddle technology to give more room for error, which is more spin, and it allows athletes from all sports to come in and have a shot, at least in singles. Doubles, I mean, you guys are the doubles experts. You guys got to tell me. I personally love watching it, but I can't do any of the stuff you guys are doing. It's crazy.
I've seen you play doubles. You're not bad.
I play singles
Come on,
with 3 other players on the court.
I have seen that before. I will say,
not great.
But it's actually. I mean, it's done you some good. I've seen you win. I've seen you win a lot of tournaments.
You've
playing
played
doubles.
5-0 doubles.
I play 5-0 doubles. I've been humbled jumping in the pro ranks.
Yeah.
But when I am playing my best, it is not a high percentage game. It is not, I'm not going out there feeling like I'm going to beat this guy 9 out of 10, 5 out of 10 times. I'm like, I've got one shot here against this dude. And, even that's how I talk about doubles. I find one person on that team, and I'm not even playing a team. I find one person that I want to go up against.
You just bang at him,
and
huh?
I try to make it a tough day. I follow them on whatever side of the court they're on, and I go straight ahead.
And you just tee off at them.
Yeah.
It's not a bad strategy, actually.
Don't say you're too good of a coach to say that.
I'm just saying it's not a bad strategy. It's a strategy. It's not a bad one.
Hey, I'd rather you have a strategy than not have a strategy.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's my.
You got anything else, Caden?
No, honestly, I love what you guys are doing, and I think it's super cool. And I actually had a paddle sent in to Tracy just to kind of see what kind of stuff he does. I'm picking it up tomorrow, so hopefully I'll get to ask him some questions and kind of see what he has to say about it. But I'm excited for it.
So any future plans or anything you'd like to share about the company or where you're going, anything?
Sure. No, I think, again, this is not my day job.
Yeah. What is your day job?
I'm a consultant. I work with hospitals and health systems.
So
it's a small boutique consulting firm. It's owned by a national law firm. Okay. I do a lot of the setup of projects, and I hire very smart attorneys to do the transactions, and they in turn have done very well by me throughout my career as a consultant.
Oh, very cool.
Okay.
Yeah. And pickleball is kind of just like your little side hustle, your hobby, your fun.
I didn't think I was going to compete in anything after college tennis, and this sport comes along, and before you know the rules, you're like, I think I'm doing this right.
Yeah, right.
But it's like everybody has that feeling and that ramp up and learning curve.
Yeah.
So for me, pickleball is it is such a unique, special sport where you can have, an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old having a competitive game, not just playing the same. It's not like they're going bowling, and on the same playing field. They're playing, and they want to see what the others got. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, from a business standpoint, such a new sport that being able to find pain points and gaps and opportunities, for me, it's looking and finding folks that are solving problems for the players. That's where I found Tracy. He was solving a great problem that I was going through, but he was solving that problem for players. So I wanted to partner up with him and just be his advocate, his agent, and see where we take it. As far as plans, I would love to push Tracy to bring, put his money where his mouth is, make a paddle that's better than every other paddle, use materials that are, not just best of breed of what's out there, like you were talking about. If I could have this handle, this edge guard, this core, this surface, this grit, but actually going out and, with his background with the military, doing military grade materials that are going to be even on batch 1 and batch 1000 that are manufactured at a panel company with, the latest adhesives, the latest materials, and to have the blank sent to him where all of the stuff that he can do to a paddle. And I'll tell you, we have paddle companies send us their paddles from the factories and asking us, what can you do to this paddle? And so we will take it apart, we'll assess it, but then we'll also rebuild it with a lot of stuff that he's invented. And, we go out and test it, and it's pretty clear which one is the mocked up one and which one's the control.
Right.
So I want to push Tracy to go and bring that paddle to life. I'd love to see it. I'd love to, have Selkirk sign off on me playing with it. No, it's again, this is the reason I got into this was really for Tracy to do all the things that he was dreaming up. I want to keep pushing him to do that. I think he can, and hopefully will bring out a paddle that is, hasn't, the likes of hasn't been seen before like this, but meets all the standards and requirements and
will be legal.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't have the risks of, a mass produced product, try to do smaller batches. A lot of the, the pros that have found him through just conversations and deficiencies they found in their own paddles, instead of, trying to sell people on sponsorship deals, have, you put a paddle in their hands and says, this will give you the best chance to win. Seeing what that type of company looks like. So as far as working with Tracy and paddles, I want to keep pushing him. I think as far as Arizona Pickleball goes, I'm going to go watch you tomorrow night.
Let's go.
At Arizona Pickleball League at the Orchard by Jigsaw Health.
Yep.
Shout out to Scottsdale Scorchers.
That's right, folks.
That's right. Tell us the matchup.
Of course, I'm playing against my boss. His name is Ryan Treffery.
Oh, you know what? When you said you're going to play against someone special, I was like, who are you talking about?
Oh, really? Oh, I thought you knew. No, I'm playing Ryan's team. And, there's been some playful banter at work, and there's been some not so playful banter. But you know what? At the end of the day, you're going to see a Scottsdale Scorchers wins. I can almost guarantee that. Almost.
Okay. All right.
But then the next word is guarantee.
No, but I think it's great. So the Arizona Pickleball League, new, right?
Yep.
Is the second week?
It's brand spanking new. Yeah, literally last week was opening week.
So what I love about this is I think we're in a time and place where Arizona Pickleball is on the map, right?
Yep.
I think what's missing in pickleball is infrastructure, right? You got to have courts, you got to have coaches, you've got to have access to players that want not only to learn the sport and get brought up and progress, but to continue to progress and reach whatever level, whatever ceiling they may have. And having that type of infrastructure, is what I'm excited about. So I try to stay involved in who is solving players' problems. And that's probably where you may see me next.
There you go. I love it.
Man. Awesome.
That's awesome.
Any last thoughts, Brett? Anything you want to tell your PaddleFix fans out here?
No, PaddleFix is a service for the players to help you keep playing with your favorite paddle. We do not have any preference on any paddle company. We have nothing bad to say about any paddle company. This is really to help the paddle companies retain their customers. We believe that these players really are your customers, and we try to do right. The fixes that we have made, we have sent to Carl Smits, from the equipment standards team at USA Pickleball. His big concern was if we're going to install a new edge guard, is it more secure? And it's absolutely secure, but it's also definitely more secure than an edge guard that risks coming off, and I don't know what could happen. But the idea is we're trying to do things the right way, above board. Not trying to be the best kept secret. We're just, it's a small business that, again, it'll be a small business as a service for players, but the reason we got into it, or at least I got interested in it, is, I want to know as much as I can about this industry because it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And
Well, you guys have your secret sauce, You can't, if I owned a restaurant and I had the most amazing garlic bread, I'm not going to go sharing my recipe. That's just me. So, what you guys do is not only changing the game, but it's also still completely legal and super cool. So I love it.
Yeah, Brett, thanks for being on, man. And good luck to all your endeavors here in the paddle industry and just pickleball industry. So we'll have you back on and see how you're doing.
That's right.
Hopefully you all enjoyed that.
We're going to have a Brett Warner follow-up.
Yeah.
Man.
Again, Brett Warner.
I will keep it going, guys.
Thank you, man.
Thanks so
Appreciate
much.
y'all.
Thanks to you, everyone. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you in the next episode.